Good afternoon. We are back on Battlesnake Official. Today we are going to be joined by Gage of Harmonic Northwest. He's going to be taking us through how to use Replit and Node.js to get started with your first Battlesnake. Very excited. This is one of our first Replit tutorials, so super stoked to see how that goes. And on that lovely note, I'm going to pass it over to Gage. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the introduction, Noah. I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad I got the invite to come talk today. Yeah, Noah and I have been talking a bit over the past few weeks because I started sort of a Battlesnake group out here on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. So if you're listening, you happen to be a student in grade 6 through 12 on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, across the strait from Victoria and the Battlesnake headquarters, then feel free to get in touch and come play with us. But yeah, my name is Gage. As Noah said, I run a little web development company. It's called Harmonic Northwest. We do a lot of custom development and web page oriented stuff, WordPress and e-commerce and what have you. Yeah, today I am going to talk to you about getting set up on Battlesnake using Replit and Node.js. And this combination of technologies came about because we were looking for the easiest way to get beginning coders set up in the Battlesnake environment. And we actually ran a test run with these things in a developer group that I run. And in the course of an hour, we had everybody up and running snakes. And at the end of a 60-minute session, like we had a little tournament of sorts, and it was great. And so, I really think that using this combination of technologies is the quickest way to get your snake up and running. And it's also, it's built on Node.js, which is super powerful, modern platform. So it's a great way to get your snake started. And then, eventually down the road, if you want to take it off Replit, you can still keep building on Node, and it's a great platform for it. So I'm going to take you through a few different steps here. The first one, we're going to look at getting signed up on Replit, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what that is. And then after we have a basic snake set up there, we're going to get signed up with the GitHub account. We're going to log into the play.battlesnake.com arena, and then we're going to run some battles with our new test snake. And hopefully, during this live presentation, we won't run into any glitches. But you never know. Technology tends to be difficult at times, especially when you're doing a presentation. I feel like the more people who are watching, the bigger chance there is something will go wrong. So don't know what our audience looks like right now, but hopefully it's not too big so that there's less chance of something going wrong. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get going. See. Okay, here we go. So is everybody seeing play.battlesnake.com? Noah, can I get a nod? All right, awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go too much over the rules and how Battlesnake works. Hopefully everybody's pretty familiar at this point. Basic idea is you have a snake that you release into the wild. It's going to run code to look at the board every single turn. And based on what it's seeing for what's going on in the board, it will make its move. And then it just keeps going move after move after move. And if you build your snake really well, then it stays alive a long time. And if not, then maybe you're the first one out. So I'm going to move over to Replit. So Replit, so this is at repl.it, if you can't read that in your stream. But yeah, this is a platform that allows you to write code through an online editor. And then additionally, it runs your code in a server environment. And you can do all this for free. And the sign up is super easy. And you can actually do a lot of different platforms here. I think you can run Python and Ruby and Java and a number of others. But like I said, we're going to be doing this tutorial in Node.js. If your preferred platform is something else, you could probably go in here and use one of these other platforms, like Python's a popular one. But for us, we're going to start with Node.js. So let's jump into it here. So I'm going to sign up. Okay, and we're going to choose a new username. And we're going to do, let's see here. I'm just going to put a bogus one in here. Then, okay. And let's see, find the bicycles. Okay, and we're in. And that is how easy sign up is for Replit. Like, we're done. We have a Replit account now that we can use. We can store code here. We can create snakes. We can create lots of snakes. If you want to have 3 Node snakes and 5 Python snakes and a Java snake, you can do that. All the code here with a free account is open source. So people will be able to go and look at your source code in addition to you being able to run your snake in the snake battles. So from here, in the upper right, there's a button here that says New REPL. So a REPL is basically it's like your code for your snake and for whatever program you're using REPL for. So we're going to start by clicking New REPL. And then here, we have a couple of choices. Initially, it asks you for a language that you're going to code in. We actually are not going to worry too much about this because we are going to import from GitHub. And let's see, I'm going to show you where we're going to import from. So the Battlesnake official group has a GitHub account, and they have some official starter snakes. And so the one that we're going to start from is the Node starter snake. And so if you go to github.com and then Battlesnake official and then starter snake node with dashes in between, starter snake node. That's where you'll take your snake from. So I'm going to copy this and then go over here. I'm going to paste that repository, and this is an open source repository that, that Battlesnake gives to us. And I'm going to import from GitHub. And here we go. And now it's getting set up. And so what's happening now is REPL is grabbing all the code from the GitHub repository, and it's bringing it over to our node, or our Replit environment. And looks like it's done. So before I get too much into what we're seeing here in terms of the REPL coding environment, there's a couple other things we need to do to make sure our snake works. So we need to choose Node.js, and that should be selected by default. I mean, there are other choices here, but Node is what we want. And then this is the tricky one, actually, configure the run button. So this is the chunk of code that will run when you hit run up here in the top center, or restart. So I'm going to hit npm start. I'm going to double check my notes to make sure that is the right one, but that should be right. Yeah, I believe that's it. Okay, so npm start, and I'm going to hit done. And at this point, it's going to sort of finish the setup. And here we go. Now we're off and running. I'm also going to hit run here for the first time, and this is going to do some stuff within REPL. So I'm going to hit run, and this is going to compile our snake for the first time. While that's happening, I want to kind of familiarize you guys with this environment that we're looking at here with Replit. So in the lower right here, you'll notice some things updating and changing. This is our console area. So this is the area that kind of gives us output from our program. So as we're running our snakes, we'll be able to see errors in there. We'll be able to see any messages that we want to console out. And it can be used for looking at what's going on in terms of if your snake is compiling correctly and that kind of thing. What we're seeing here with the get 200, that is good. If you're seeing a get 200, that means your snake is probably working. That means that it's serving up things like it's supposed to. See, initially when you fire up an account, you have this business in the upper right. You don't need this, so just X that out. Now we're down to 2 panels over here. So this gives us a little bit more output from our server. There's two URLs that are important here that I want to point out at this point. So this URL that you see in here, this is where your snake, where your competition snake lives. So when we go to the next part of this presentation and we're getting set up in the Battlesnake play arena, you'll want to use this URL as your snake URL. And then up here, of course, this is the browser bar. And if you go to this URL up here in the browser bar, this essentially brings you just to your coding environment. So for example, if you wanted to share your code with another student or with somebody else who is you're partnering with on a project, you would send them this URL up here in the browser. Because I think if we send this URL, you're not going to see much. I think you'll see the same thing that you see in that upper right, which is your snake is alive. So let's see. And it's taking its time. Yeah, see, I don't think we're going to see much there anyway. So just to point that out, two different URLs that are important. This one here, your snake, competition snake that runs the code, and then this one here, which is kind of the source code link. Here in this panel is where we have actual code and stuff you can edit. We'll be using that in a minute. On the left side here, you've got all the code that runs your snake. So a couple important ones I want to point out. The one we'll be working in is index.js, but before we go there, if for some reason you missed setting your language correctly, or if you missed setting the run command correctly, you want to do it in this .replit file. And basically this tells the environment what code you're running, what kind of code you're running. In our case, it's NodeJS, and then what your run command is. And that essentially is what is run when you hit this green button up here. All right, so I'm going to hop into index.js, and actually I'm just, yeah, let's hear it. All right, so the question coming in is, does it cost any money to run a Replit snake? The answer is no. So Replit is totally free. They do have a paid tier that you can pay for and sign up for. I believe what you get out of that is largely private code repositories. And then I think there's some extra sharing features as well. But yeah, it's completely free otherwise. Yeah, all the people in our group have been running this as a free service. Here, and I'm going to check the chat log here and just make sure there's anything else. Yep. Okay. Yeah, it seems like that's the only question coming in at this point. So if you're watching live right now on Twitch, like definitely use that chat log as I'm going, and I will try to slow down and field some of these questions as they come in. Okay. So I'm going to restart here real quick. All right. So at this point, we actually have a snake that runs and works. Like we can throw this into a pit, and it'll do kind of what the it'll do exactly what the node starter snake does. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the code and what's happening there, but just know for now that what's happening here in the code is that the snake is picking a random move every time. So we can throw our snake in the pit right now, and it'll just kind of move around randomly. So before I get into the code section, I think I am going to go ahead and sign up for a free GitHub account. And we will get. I'll show you how to navigate the Battlesnake play arena and get our snake inserted in there. And then we'll come back and we'll look at the code a little bit more. All right, so here I've gone to github.com, and this is like the world's most popular and ubiquitous code repository. So for those of you who are unaware, it's a place where you can store your code. It's really good for if you want to version your code. So if you want to have a history of what you've done, it's really amazing for collaborating in teams. It's great for open source. If you have a project that you want to put out there and you want some help with, or you have a community of people you're working with, like this is an amazing way to kind of work together on code. And this is widely used across the development community for personal and professional projects. So I'm going to create a new account. So let's see, so I'm going to sign in. Oops, I think I clicked the wrong link there, but you want to hit sign up rather than sign in. In this case, I'm going to do SSS 05. Okay, it is available, good. And we're gonna do, let's see, again, I'm gonna do a bogus account. Password. All right, don't really want that email. Let's see, now we gotta verify a puzzle. Oh, the image. Okay, I think we got it. All right, gold star, I guess, okay. Create an account. So it's 50, oh, my password isn't good enough, I see. Okay, I think we're good. All right, cool. Now I'm gonna say I'm a student. I have a little programming experience. I'm gonna learn to code. I am interested in NodeJS and Battlesnake. All right. All right, so at this point, I'll get an email verification. You actually don't need to worry about the email verification to work in GitHub, though, so that's handy. So at this point, I've got a GitHub account. We actually do not need to store our code in GitHub for the purposes of this demo. I do think it's a good idea in general, but the code we're going to be running today is running directly off of Replit. So the GitHub we sign up for because we need that to log in to the arena. Okay, so I'm logged into GitHub right now. So my next step is going to be to go to play.battlesnake.com. This is sort of the landing page for all things Battlesnake. I use the docs a fair amount. You can go in there and look at kind of like what our data structure looks like for the board and other handy tips for coding your snake. Yeah, beyond that, yeah, mostly I'm just there for the play arena, I suppose. So I'm going to create an account, and I think sign up does the same thing, and click sign up here. Okay, welcome to Battlesnake. Sign in with GitHub. Let's do it. And verified email address. Ooh, interesting. Maybe I got this wrong. Maybe I do need an official GitHub account. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, so in that case here, I'm just gonna sign out. So we do have to verify the account. So I'm gonna sign in with my account that I usually sign in with. So I didn't realize that that verification step was necessary. So, okay, let's go to play. All right, here we go. In this case, I'm gonna log in. I think you get the same things. As long as you're signed into GitHub, you'll hit that big sign in with GitHub button. And then with any luck, you'll have an account that you're signed into at that point. All right, so at this point, I could go in here. And so I have a number of Battlesnakes in here already. So this is actually my account that I use. But let's pretend that this was empty, which it will be for you guys. And I'm going to create a new Battlesnake. And I'm going to say Gage's stay home and code snake. Okay. I'm going to go back to Replit. So here we go. I'm going to copy this. And remember, we have two different URLs that we could potentially copy here. This one over here is the one that you want, the one on the right. If you copy the one up here in the URL bar, it's not going to work. That's your source code, but that is not your snake that's running. Okay, so back here to URL. All right, I'm going to say for demo purposes. I'm not going to worry too much about the tags, and then allow anybody to add snake to a game. So if you want to make your snake public for everybody to add, you can check this. My snake is not going to be particularly interesting, so I think I'll just not muddle up the pool. All right, so I created a new snake, and there it is. Next step will be to create a game. So let's see. Oh, there's my SHA snake. So I'm going to hit plus here. Cool. So by hitting the plus on these snakes over here, they appear on the right side, or if you're on a narrow screen, they'll appear down at the bottom. But you'll start to see a list of snakes, and you can add your same snake multiple times. So if you only have one snake, that's probably not a bad idea. Although it will muddy up the console, so maybe I won't do that for that reason. I will add a couple other snakes that I think will live for a little while. So Mallory, I think, has a good one. Okay, so I've got 3 snakes in here. You can just do one snake. You can put your same snake in there multiple times. You probably shouldn't put your same snake in multiple times because for debugging purposes, that can be a mess. But you can put one of your snakes, and then you can find some of your friends' snakes, or you can add some other public snakes through here. Like, I don't even know. So yeah, if you start putting in some letters, like, you can find a bunch of other snakes. Ooh, Battle Noodle sounds fun. Okay, we're gonna resist the urge there. Okay, so we're gonna do a start game. All right, here we go. So I've got 3 snakes on my board. I got Boss Snake, which is sort of my in progress snake that I've been playing with. We got the one from today, the SHAC snake, and we got Mallory snake. And so if I go down to the bottom here, hit play, that was a pretty short game. It looks like the snakes did not do so well. I'm going to create a rematch so I can get a better game. Hit play. That's a little bit better. Okay, here we go. So once your snake gets a little bit smarter, like, this is a little bit more what you expect. Like, the snakes will actually stay alive for a little while and avoid walls, avoid each other, collect food, get longer. At the beginning, your snake is not going to do that because it's not particularly smart at the beginning. I can go back and I can reload this game. If I want to go back and check out kind of what happened during the game, I can toggle one at a time, see what's going on here. So that's pretty cool. And then your games actually are always available to view later. So if you were to copy this URL, you could share this game with other people, which is super, super cool. So if you have, some epic game that was amazing to show your friends, you can copy this URL, send it out to them, and they can check out the match that happened. Let's see. I'm going to check the Twitch chat real quick. This is probably a good Q&A point. Latency issues. So Replit.it's actually pretty fast. Like, we've had really good luck. That was initially a worry when we started running snakes on Replit. It's like, is that server going to be quick enough to actually respond in the allotted time? And Noah, you might know this. I don't. But I think there is like a timeout amount of time that you have. In other words, if your snake takes 10 seconds to respond, that's probably too much, and it'll probably skip your turn. So I'm not exactly sure where that threshold is, but in my experience running, seeing dozens of these Replit snakes run, we've never had a problem with latency. Yep, and Replit, it looks like Replit.it's on the line, and they responded too. So I will confirm what Replit said there. Again, it's an amazing platform. Like, honestly, I could not imagine a quicker way and a better way to get beginning programmers going on snakes and have them work flawlessly. All right, so we've run a couple battles. Now I guess, at this point now we're kind of looking at code. So we've got the setup going, right? So we have gone through and we've created our Replit snake. We have set up a GitHub account. We have set up an account with the Play arena for Battlesnake. So essentially, like, we have all the things that we need to do to run snakes and start making our snakes smart and get it ready for the big competition on April 25th. So how do we get it going for competition? So I'll just look at a little bit at the data here. Like, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about customizing snakes. There's a lot of great tutorials out there that do that for you, but I'm going to at least try to cover the basics here in the next 15 minutes or so. So just to make sure that this is working, that we're actually able to edit our code, I think first thing I'm going to do is change my color. So if I want a blue color, well, actually, let me take a step back. So for beginning coders, these 6 digits that you're seeing here for the color, it probably looks pretty weird, right? That's not what you'd expect for a color. It's a representation of 3 different pixel colors. The first 2 are R, and then G is green. Last 2 are B, which is blue. So if I do a 0, 0. I'm going to do FF. And so this is hexadecimal. So in other words, instead of going from 0 to 9, the digits go from 0 to 9, and then A, B, C, D, F. So it gets up to 16. And basically, with these kind of 3 parts of the color code, you can choose the balance of colors. And hopefully in this case, I get a snake that looks blue. So I'm going to hit start. So when you make a change, it's a good idea to hit start or restart up here. Replit.it's actually pretty good about restarting kind of on its own when you make changes, but I always just make double sure by hitting restart here. Okay, back to our play arena. I think my snake at the beginning of this game was gray. It is. See, it's got a dark gray. That's the 8888 color. If I create a rematch now, I think it should turn blue. Let's see. Hey, and look at that. My snake turned blue. So that's a good sign. That means that my snake is responding to the code that I'm changing. And of course, if I hit play, it should still work. Yep, it went randomly until it died. It looks like I went head-to-head with Mallory and did not win that battle. So cool. You can also change your head type and tail type. When we initially went to that landing page, you probably saw a bunch of snakes zipping around with different heads and tails. So you can set those. And maybe this is a good time to talk about the documentation that Battlesnake offers. So if you were to go to, let's see, like initially from play.battlesnake.com, up here on the top, we have docs. So if you were to click in the docs, this puts you here. And this is an amazing place to go get lots of information for building snakes. For beginning coders, it is a little bit dense, a little bit hard to read, but there's a lot of great information here. And I think there's actually 2 links I'm going to point you to. So one is customizing your snake. So I'm going to pop open a new tab with that one. There's a lot of great information for just kind of getting started here. It talks a little bit about color. It talks about your head type and tail type. And let's see. So in this case, we've got a beluga head and a curl tail. But you actually have a whole bunch of heads and tails you can choose from. So I think I'm going to choose something a little bit different. Let's see. I'm going to do silly and round bum, see how that works. So my head type is going to be silly. And we're working in JavaScript here, and this is a string. So be sure when you change these things that you have quotes around there. They can be single quotes or double quotes. It doesn't matter too much. And then round bum. All right, I'm going to hit restart. Okay, and I can see down here in my console, it's doing stuff. And then once it has that get command here, or the get line, that means that it's ready. So I'm going to go do another rematch. And there we go. Now I've got a silly head. If I go forward a few, oh, it looks like I died already. That was a pretty quick death. But you can see I've got a round tail. So that worked. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so I mentioned we're going to be working in index.js. So that's where all of our snake logic is. You can ignore all these other files. The index.js is where it's at. And even more specifically, beyond this little chunk of code that you can edit here on line 31 through 35, really all your code is going to be happening here in the app post move. So I'd mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that your snake is getting data every single move from the board. And so this is sort of the means by which it's getting the data. So every single move, your snake is receiving data here. It's in the form of this request body in this instance here. And then you get a bunch of board data. And with that board data, you can work with it. You can look at where the walls are, make sure you don't hit those. You can look at where your own body is, make sure you don't hit that. You can see where the other snakes are. You want to avoid them. You can see where the food is. You probably want to run toward the food. So all that, like every single turn, you get a new dump of data that represents what's happening on the board. And you also get turn data. You also get health data. All sorts of useful stuff. And you probably want to figure out what that data looks like so you can actually use it. So the second link from the docs that I want to point you to is the the Battlesnake API. So here is our Battlesnake API. I find this really useful for this piece right here. So this talks about a response that you get in the games. And this is a start response, but let's see. Oh, here's a move response. So I think they're pretty much the same. You get a JSON object. So if you've been doing a little bit of JavaScript, this should look familiar to you. JSON is the JavaScript specific data type that is commonly used everywhere for everything. It's super flexible, very handy. For a beginner, this is important for you to learn. But yeah, you basically get a dump of data that's sort of organized in this hierarchical way. You have these things here called properties that hold different values. So in this case, we have the game, which gives you an idea of what your game is. You might have noticed when we're running the battles, there's this big string up here. So I think this corresponds to the game ID. Basically, it helps you look up your game later if you want to go to replay. You get your turn, so that's cool. You get a bunch of board data. This stuff is vitally important. You can see the height and width of the board, because that can change. You know, you can have a huge board or a small board or an oblong board or a square board. You've got data about your food. So in this case, we've got one food point. You've got one food pellet on the board, I should say, and it's at x equals 1, y equals 3. So that would be x equals, no, here's 1. So 1 over on this side, and then y equals 3, 3 down. So that would be this square right here. And then you've got a list of snakes. So in this example here, we only have one snake on the board. Its name is Snaky Snick. Its health is 90 at this moment. It's got this ID. And then it tells you where the body pieces are. So on the first turn, your snake is only 1 square leg, and then it grows into 3 over the course of 3 turns. But on the very first turn, you will see just 1 body point, and that will grow to 3 body points. And one thing I'll point out here while we're looking at the data and while I'm talking to kind of a beginner audience is take note of these curly braces here. So you have curly braces surrounding everything normally. In this case, you see a square brace. When you see a square brace, that means it is an array. An array is a list of items. So in this case, you might have a list of food pellets. So we've got 1 food pellet right now, but you could imagine we might have like 10 or 20 of these things on the board. And same here under body. Right now we've got 1 body, but you imagine your body can get really long. And so you might have like, 10 body segments or something like that. Cool. All right, I'm going to check the Slack on Twitch. Yep, not seeing any messages. I'll just keep on trucking here. Thankfully, this is going to be recorded, and this is going to be archived, I believe, on the Battlesnake official Twitch channel. So if you want to go back and slow things down here, you can go back and rewatch that on the Battlesnake official twitch.tv channel, and you can take this at your own pace. Okay, so back here. Yeah, maybe before I go there, let's go back to the docs. So this is the data that we're getting from the board every single turn. Oh, by the way, I did miss this one. So U is a listing of what's going on with your snake in particular. So under the board, we have snakes, and it shows all the snakes on the board. But this one is sort of a shortcut to get to your snake. And it's really, really handy for distinguishing your snake from all the other snakes that are out there. So yeah, if you want to know the position of your snake and where the head of your snake is, then you would probably want to use this data point. Okay. So let's see. So we don't have a ton of stuff here. So you'll notice here toward the end, we are returning a move, snake move. So that's kind of, we get all this data from the board. We can look at it. We can do stuff with our code to kind of deal with that data, figure out where our snake should go. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen is your snake is going to output up, left, down, or right. And again, that's noted here in the documentation. Your move is going to be up, down, left, or right. And the shout is optional, don't worry about that. But the move you do need to return every single time. And I believe if your snake does not return a move for whatever reason, it'll just go up. And it'll go up and up and up. So if your snake is broken for some reason, you'll usually see it just go straight up and it dies. So I'm going to kind of, let's see, we got possible moves. So I'm going to comment out some code. So you can comment out code in Node by doing 2 dashes, 2 front slashes, I should say. And then your program will ignore those bits of code. So I'm going to set snake move. So it was random, right, with all that code. I'm going to set it to, let's go right. And then I'm going to restart. And I'm going to see if that worked. So at the end of the day, it's returning this JSON response of move, snake move, and my snake move is right. So let's see if that works. So if it worked, my snake is just going to go off the board over here. And it did. Cool, so we know that's working. So I'm going to comment this out. So that is how you move your snake in the kind of the simplest possible way. So I'm probably not going to go too much longer with this presentation, but I do want to show you how to look at this snakeboard data so that you can do stuff with it. Maybe we'll take just a few extra minutes and see if we can do just something really simple with the data. So if I want to look at the data that's coming in for my snake, I can do a console log. And I can do, let's see. So in this case, my data is in this data variable. So I can do a console log, and we could say data for turn. I'm going to do data.turn. Do a console dir, which is JavaScript's way of outputting an object nicely to your console. And we're going to do data. All right, and I'm going to restart. And so with any luck, this console dir data will show us the state of the board every single move. So we're going to see if this works. And so I'm going to run another battle. So again, for our snakes to do anything at all, you got to run a battle. All right, and let's see what happened over here. Cool. All right, it looks like that worked. So you can see data for turn 3. I've got my game with the game ID. You got turn 3, so that lines up. That's good. Got a bunch of board data. The height and width of the board is 11. We've got some food. We've got some snakes. We've got my snake. We got a name, health, all this good stuff. So it looks like we're outputting all the stuff that we expected to output from this object here. So again, this is the data that the board is giving us every single turn. This is what the game engine is giving us every single turn. So, and again, you can use this data to do stuff. So you notice, let me see if I can show you one quick trick. Let's see here. Got a note on this somewhere. So you'll notice how there's object there. There is a way to get around that. Let's see if I can find this in my notes real quick. There we go. Okay. So if you put a second parameter in your console dir that is depth null, hit restart, that should allow these objects to actually get expanded in your data. So basically it's telling the console that you want to go beyond just the first level or two of data, like you want to see the full data object. So let's see here. I'm going to run another battle. Click rematch. Hit play. All right, cool. And then if I go here, I can see it worked. So I've got my full data object coming out of here. Cool, so that's some really, really basic debugging, seeing data. And let's just do one last thing. We're gonna see if we can actually do something with the data. just to get you kind of started on how that works. So let's say, so right now our snake move is right. Let's say we want to, maybe we want to alternate between up and left for now, or up and right. So I can do something like if data.turn modulus 2 is equal to 0. So this is saying if you divide the turn by 2 and the remainder is 0, then we're going to make our snake move equal, let's go down. Otherwise, it's just going to stay right. So I'm going to restart. And we're going to reload. Actually, nope. Reload doesn't do anything. Reload reloads the same game. You want to create a rematch for a new game. All right, here we go. Yeah, and so this should go right and down and right and down and right and down, and it should exit the screen somewhere over here if something else doesn't kill it first. So let's see. Hey, it worked. Look at that. So I'm going to hit backward. So you see that totally worked. Go forward a couple times, forward, forward, forward. So you can see every other turn, it's using that modulus to determine if it's an even or odd turn, basically. And if it's even, I think it's going down. If it's odd, then it's going right. And so you get down, right, down, right, down, right. And you can imagine, like one thing that's a really good thing for beginners to do is to create a snake that just goes in circles. So you can imagine if you used a modulus 4, you could go up, you could go right, you can go left, you could go down, up, and then just repeat forever and ever. And it just goes around in a circle. And that will enable you to stay alive for, potentially 100 turns, which is, not bad for a beginner snake. And then, a lot of times what people will do is they'll have their snakes go in a circle for a little while, let a few snakes die. And then maybe when they get down to 50% health, then at that point they start doing something a little more interesting and potentially more dangerous. All right. So I'm kind of getting toward the end of the time I wanted to spend on this. So I'm going to check the chat and see if we have anything there. And if not, I think that we're probably going to call it a session here. Let's see. So I am seeing. No, I'm not seeing any questions right now. But again, yeah, Stay Home and Code is going to have their tournament next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So definitely, submit your snake, tune in for that. For those who are beginning coders who may be coding with a parent or with a mentor, there is a division for you. So the students that I'm working with in our little league on the Olympic Peninsula, I'm encouraging them to sign up for the parent and student division. So that you can, basically see how your snake does. And, even if you coded it with a parent, it's not entirely yours. You still get a chance to compete and see how your snake does against other snakes, which is really cool and should be really fun. Let's see. Oh, couple chats coming in here. How long have you spent on your snake, and how long does it take to be competitive? Ooh, good questions. All right. So I'm not sure how long I've spent on my snake, and I will preface this by saying my snake is terrible. I, for better or worse, have spent the majority of my Battlesnake time helping others learn to build snakes and kind of enabling this kind of small scale group down on the Olympic Peninsula. My snake is pretty terrible. That being said, I probably spent several hours on it. I'm in the process of building sort of a little tool to help me visualize what's going on the board, and I just kind of got quagmired in that and stopped. But it's actually almost done. So we'll see. Maybe I'll actually get it done and have a competition snake for the next time around. But the Battlesnake stuff, it's so open-ended. You can spend like I've shown you here, you can have a snake up and running, 10 minutes. Or you could spend, just a few hours on it, have something that, stays alive for a while, does okay. Or honestly, I could see this being a full-time job. There's people who, build machine learning snakes that are amazing, right? And they're using the latest technology and the latest AI stuff to determine, how the snake should move. Essentially using a lot of the same technologies that you might use to build an amazing chess playing robot, right? You could build a deep blue Battlesnake, right? So yeah, I mean, honestly, the amount of time that it takes to be competitive, yeah, I don't know. I suppose that depends on your coding level, and it depends who you're being competitive with. But yeah, I would encourage you to spend a few hours on it, because I think as an experienced coder, within a few hours you can have a snake that stays alive for a while and does okay. I think as a beginner, like, it'll probably take you a few weeks. Spend a few weeks on it. Maybe 20, 30 hours. With help from a mentor, and you can probably have something pretty good. And then, if you want to, quit your job, drop out of school, make your full-time thing Battlesnake, you can do that too, because there's, it's a, it's a big challenge, and there's just endless opportunities to improve your snakes. Cool. I think with that, I'm going to sign off. Noah, is there anything else you want to add before we call it here?
First, I want to say thanks to Gage. That was an awesome tutorial. Really excited, and that was great. I know a lot of beginners have always asked how they can get started with Battlesnake, and now we have this great resource that we can point them to. So super excited for that. Yeah, so thanks again for running through that and getting everybody started. And we'll keep going from there. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.